Hey, yep, we're back. Lance here, excited. I'm sitting down with Jeremy Gonzales. He is a revival group pastor here in our school ministry. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, how you doing?
Dude, I'm good, man. I'm
Good,
really
good, good.
happy to have you with us today. We're just weaving around the big theme of family wholeness.
Mm,
Like we just see that strong families give way to strong communities, strong
yes.
culture. And when families are breaking down, like sometimes there's a lot of disrepair that ends as a result of that, into like in terms of real systemic issues, crises, and culture. And
Hmm.
I'm actually stoked to sit down with you. I'm just going to lead with this straight out of the gate, Jeremy.
Sure.
You have the reason we wanted to sit down with you is in your story. Like you're a Jesus follower, but you've also been navigating the whole reality of divorce. And so
Yes.
oftentimes like that thing is so stigmatized in the church. We don't talk about it. It's like,
Mm-mm.
wait, you're divorced. Hey, you're a pastor and you're divorced. And then there's just people just turn off and
Hmm.
pull the plug. And I'm really excited to talk there, but we're going to get there eventually. I want to
Sure.
start first just with like your journey, like anything that you would bring up in terms of family dynamics that you experienced, son of a father, son of a mother. I don't know if you had siblings. Like, what's your story of family wholeness growing up? And maybe it
Yeah.
was crazy, or maybe it was just straight up perfect. I don't know. All
Yeah, it wasn't perfect at all. Grew up in Stockton, California.
right.
I would say that my dad is the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. Like that was
Well,
the one thing that he did. He always just supplied for us and made sure we had, what we needed in life growing up. My mom, she got saved in a pretty legalistic, charismatic Pentecostal church in Stockton, and but they knew how to pray, and so yeah, my mom's this Pentecostal lady that's always praying and that God's always talking to. I think my first real experience to like word of knowledge would be when I was like younger. When I was a kid, we'd come home from school and my mom would say, "Hey, what happened at like 1:30 today at school? I was praying and the Lord told me something happened," and we're just,
uh,
jaw dropped because she was right on. So she was always praying for us. My dad was a non-practicing Catholic. He went from kindergarten to high school, all Catholic school, but nothing other than that. Just
yeah.
he would say this. He was a functioning alcoholic, so
Okay.
and all that comes with that. And I think I have three brothers. I'm the second, and we pretty much got our validation through athletics, through being good
Okay.
at sports. And unfortunately, my brother was always better than me, so I grew up. Um, my name probably could have been Matt's brother growing up, just because he got all the accolades and the recognition, and just was just such a great athlete. And I was good, but not as good as he was. So that was kind of the family dynamic. My parents were very creative with their dollars because they had to make them stretch with four boys, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And like I said, my dad was always, he'd work a 40-hour week day job, and then he was always, working a side job here or doing something this, something there, and having us help as well. So that was kind of the environment I was raised in. When I was 15, I think, we went to a church service, Assemblies of God Church. There was a man named Donnie Moore there speaking. He was the chaplain for the Oakland A's for 30 years. And on one night, my mom had prayed for my dad for the first 19 years of their marriage, for him to become a Christian. And on one night, when Donnie was preaching, my dad, my older brother, myself, and my younger brother all got saved at the same service.
Wow.
So we had to figure out early on like what this new life was going to look like, because we had, pretty much our whole entire childhood all the way up to early teenage years just kind of, living our lives. And then all of a sudden we're introduced to this new thing called, Christianity. Like I said, my mom went to church, but we would go a couple times a year. There was nothing more than that. She was the one that was more dedicated. But all of a sudden we had a whole family that was, trying to go after the Lord. So that's kind of gets you up to about my early teenage years. So
And how's that dynamic? Like we talk about healthy family, stable family. Like was the God factor like a real shift, like a huge
oh
change, or what?
yeah, my dad literally, like, um quit drinking. Like
Yeah.
no more, none of that. Like it was just complete, just walked away, left it at the altar, whatever picture you'd want to,
Wow.
to describe what happened, became more loving. I think that was, if from what I can recall, that night was only the second time I'd ever seen my dad cry. Just wasn't,
Yeah.
didn't show emotions. Now, I think he's one of the more, he's probably more tender than some of us now. Just seeing this God really just soften his heart. And unfortunately, my grandmother passed away a few weeks ago, and my kids spent Thanksgiving with their mom in Utah. So I had to
Yeah.
go pick them from the airport in Oakland when they were coming back, and my dad went with me. And he shared story. I think just everything that's happened with my grandmother passing, like he shared stories with me that I'd never heard of. Never heard him
Wow.
say. 42 years, just how he grew up, like his parents were divorced, like all this stuff that
Mm.
I just sitting there and even mentioned it to him, like, man, I've never heard you say this. He goes, yeah, I just never felt to share it. So, so even now, God's continued just to like encouraging our relationship. One thing that I realized when I was going through it, like the middle of my divorce, I would sit by my dad, and he wouldn't say anything to me, but I could literally feel him like trying to like put together some like words of comfort, and it never really came out, but I think me just sitting there just feeling that and like wanting to come out was really encouraging for me even during that season. So yeah, there's been a huge shift in just how we do family and life. And I mean, two out of my three brothers are currently in ministry now, which we had no ministry background growing up.
Yeah.
So just even that, what had happened to our family of just now we're pretty much a family of ministers, is just
Yeah.
God kind of just stepping in and changing the trajectory of our family. So
So what's your, I mean, it's hard to nutshell it, but what's your take on healthy family? Like if a family is healthy, it is like what kind of things are going down, or what are
yeah,
some of the elements that you've experienced? Yeah.
I think having community around family is really important.
Okay.
I think honesty and vulnerability is really important. I don't know if my parents really modeled for me how to communicate my feelings growing up. And
Yeah.
I think I struggled for a lot of years in my marriage of not knowing what to say. And so,
Okay.
or just, and because you can't verbalize your emotions, like you just kind of stuff things down, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion when you kind of get to your, you kind of feel that, you feel the inside, and you can't contain it anymore. So
Yeah.
I think good communication. I think BSSM Dan Fairley teaches brave communication. I wish I'd have had those tools when I first started my marriage. So I think those kind of things are important.
Yeah.
Obviously, forgiveness. Huge, asking for forgiveness. And when have gotten too mad, or you've letting your emotions get the best of you, or I feel like I practice that with my kids a lot. I don't want to be the parent that's prideful and or puts it all on my kids. Like, yeah, if I have a bad day or a bad moment, I want to own it. I want to own it as fast as I can, and I want to make it right with my kids, because I think connection is the main point of healthy family,
Yep.
is that we feel connected to each other. And that only happens when you feel connected to God. I think one of the things that I've learned even over this last few years of navigating this new season of my life is this isn't okay in here, it 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 always it always eventually comes out towards the people you love the most. Like when
Yeah.
you're not feeling good about yourself, when you're dealing with pain, when you're
Mm.
dealing with hurt, when you're dealing with disappointment, it just always tends to just come out to the people that you actually don't want it to come out towards. But and so I think, making sure that you're connected with the Lord in and of yourself, and that you're aware of what you're feeling, and having the places to be able to healthily and healthy way communicate that stuff is, I think, is really important.
Yeah. Wow. It's a big deal. So vulnerability, but yeah, some of us maybe don't have the tools to get stuff out that's going on the inside.
Yeah.
I love what you shared there earlier, like having community be a piece of the element. Anything that you've either witnessed or do with your family that like pulls community around your family? So I think sometimes we feel like we have
Yeah.
to be self-contained, but it
Hmm.
sounds like you're talking about like reaching out of yourself and maybe even relying on people that aren't your immediate family to be a part of the process. And maybe that's even more necessary now that you're like a single father, right?
Hmm. Oh, 100%. I have I have a son and two daughters.
Okay.
I grew up with three brothers. So I think I have a decent understanding of what it takes to like raise a boy. But
Yeah.
girls is still, my oldest is 12, my youngest is 10. It's still new to me in some senses because they're growing and they're maturing and they're changing. And that's been one of
Yeah.
my prayers because their mom's not close, yeah, like distance wise. She
Okay.
lives in a couple states away. So leaning
Yeah.
on healthy women and people that can kind of step in and help when I need it. I think my kids had picture day a couple months ago, and I have no idea how to do makeup. Like, zero context. I know I can kind of put some gel in my own hair, but that's the extent of it. And so I had to,
Yeah.
but I wanted my girls to go, and they wanted to go and looking nice. So I made a few phone calls, texted a few of my old students and one of my current interns, and they showed up at my house at 6:30 in the morning to do my girls' makeup and hair. And I
Wow.
could have just said like, oh well, it's not a big deal, but like I wanted to communicate like to my kids how important they are,
Yeah,
to me.
man. Yeah. Yeah. And there you go. Like you're reaching out to yourself. So it sounds
Yeah.
like you learned some skills on like not just being overly self-reliant. You're like, because
No.
sometimes that's
Yeah.
hard to pull on people.
Oh, because it strikes you as maybe you can't do it, or maybe
Yeah.
it attacks your identity if you let it. But I think when you can understand your needs and
Yeah.
understand your limits and be okay with those. And it's not that we don't ever grow, or it's not that we never mature, or we don't try to get more skills and tools. Like I'd love to be able to do hair and makeup one day for my girls, but I just don't have that right now. So, and that's not a bad thing. So to be able to like
Wow.
pull on people that can help is just been a really cool thing for me this season. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You're kind of breezing on it a little bit. Like what's your idea of as a father to sons and daughters, like just input on what your sons need versus what your girls need. And again, I think as parents, like we're just learning constantly. So it's not like any
Yeah.
one of us have it figured out, but
Yeah, I think I grew up just so insecure, and
mm,
so and I think I'm not. I think it followed me a lot longer than I thought it would, even to my early 30s. And so I remember going through BSSM here, and where I pastor now, and just almost like I think I was 33, 34, just really fully understanding the identity message,
mm,
and that God the Father is He loves you and He's proud of you. And I remember just really getting these, and then I almost got a level of anxiety of like, okay, well, how do I give this away to my kids now? Like, had no idea, hadn't seen it done
yeah,
before. And I remember one day, this is probably, I don't know, 6 years ago, after I graduated from first year. I was driving my kids to school one day, and I would hit the rearview mirror down so I could see in the back seat of the car. And I started telling each one of my kids 10 things I loved about them every day on the way to school, and just
wow,
wanted to let them know, like, hey, I see you, I see what you're good at, like I see your heart, I see how you interact, because I feel like that's what God the Father does with us, is just really just
wow,
establishes how much He loves us because He sees us. And so just started doing that, because I didn't know how else to do it. That just came to me, and I was like, let's do it. And so I probably 4 or 5 months into it, we're driving to school one day, and I was about to do it, and my middle child, her name's Rescue, said, how come we never tell you 10 things we love about you? And then I'm really like trying to like drive and cry and look in the back mirror all the same time. Like, I don't know if I recommend that, but it was just this moment of like, when you're feeling loved, that's what comes out of you. Like when you're feeling seen, like you feel secure, you feel safe, you
Mm,
don't feel threatened, you feel valuable. And that just comes out of you. And I've seen it even recently. My son, it's okay, I tell a quick story, we good?
oh, no, this is
Okay.
amazing. Yeah.
So my son was playing soccer, um And there was a kid, while I was watching the game, there was a kid who was making a lot of loud noises, and I looked over, and he looked like he was maybe early 20s. He had Down syndrome, and he
Okay.
had his headset in, and he was singing along. And once you saw it, it was like one of the coolest things ever, right? He was just having the time of his life. And so my middle child, she sees him and goes over to him, and they start like dancing, and he's laughing, and she's having a good time. And then it was actually like a scene out of a movie. Like all these little kids come around them, and they all start doing like the same move, just dancing, have a good time. And I didn't want to be that parent that pulled out my phone, because that moment was etched in my memory, regardless if I captured it on video or not. Just
Wow.
seeing her just being kind to this kid, this man.
Mm.
um and so that was it. Just moved on. Great moment. I think my son lost soccer or whatever, but the game. But uh the mom of that young man calls the kid's school the next day, and with tears in her eyes, I guess because this is being communicated to me through the school now, the front office ladies, that she said that no one had ever treated her kid like that, another kid, in all of his years. And she was so thankful and wanted to let the school know about my daughter, and just her being kind. And I think that really, like, I say all that to say, like, really, like, establishing love and identity in your kids. And another thing is, I
Mm.
feel like there's a lot of pressure nowadays, especially maybe in the bubble, in the world I'm in, for our kids to be like super spiritual, like prophesy and heal. And I love all that, and that's what I teach adults, to do. And I love that. But their mom and I, we always, our priorities was that we would have kind kids.
Yeah.
Like that was the number one priority for us, more than, because I knew we could teach them all the other stuff down the road, but we wanted them to be kind. Like we wanted them to be the ones that look out for the one, and or stick up for somebody, or because I didn't want spiritual little jerks in my household that could prophesy, but didn't know how to be kind. And I think that's the message of Jesus, right? It's all that stuff is great, as long as it's a manifestation of his love, for somebody. And so, wanting to just raise my kids and to be kind humans, and be thoughtful and intentional, has been something that's probably been on the top of my priority list since day one, and it's still there. So
It's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so many good thoughts in there. I love what you're talking about. Like out of security, there's just
Hmm.
good family dynamics flow.
Yeah. Oh,
And
absolutely.
when you're not secure or living whatever threatened, or like the world's against you, it's pretty tough to be an effective husband,
Oh,
father,
totally.
son.
Hmm.
Yeah. I want to get into some of the dynamics around the challenge of navigating that divorce. I
Hmm.
mean, firstly, just with your kids. Um, I mean, I don't know. I know I went through a divorce as a kid, but my kids haven't navigated that. So as an
Hmm.
adult, I'm like, I don't know. Like
Sure,
what
sure.
what have you noted? What have you noticed with your children that, like, is helping them? What have you noticed with your children that's like, yeah, there's a real struggle for them that they've had to navigate? And again, all this is towards the end of empowering people that might be listening or
Yeah.
taking part in this call.
Yeah, I think I do my best as a parent when I'm just aware of the things that they're not saying, you know.
Yeah.
Um and and I think we all have to, like, live in that tension of, like, when do I push in, and when do I just be present and just be
Mm,
there. And then, because
mm,
I think sometimes we feel like we always need to, like, directly face a topic or an issue. But I think if
mm.
if you're loving and you're consistent and you're good with your physical touch, and you're engaging with them, you're laughing with them, like, I feel like that can do as just as much amount as healing as, like, addressing the problem. And so I think I
Wow.
kind of do that dance of, like, okay, is this the moment I step in? Is this the moment I say something? And I know I know a while back, my youngest was look, she was disappointed that her mom wasn't going to be here for her birthday, which she lives out of state. This, not throwing shade, it's just our current situation. And so I was just
Yeah.
trying to, like, really just console her and just tell her, like, not solve the problem. I think that's what I failed at in marriage, was that I always be trying to solve the problems instead of just being present, and and just being listening, because I think guys naturally want to like fix things very quickly, and I've had to learn through brokenness and failure that you can't fix everything, and that
Yeah.
maybe that shouldn't have been the only tool I had in my tool belt, navigating relationships. So,
Yeah.
but I was just trying to console her and just tell her how I understand how tough that is, and how that's, was not, not the best that we wanted for her. And
Mm,
my older daughter comes down and she's like cracking jokes, having the time of her life, and I could very quickly tell that that wasn't what was really going on. And so I said, hey, you don't always have to laugh. Like, it's, if you're not feeling great, and maybe 30 seconds the waterworks get turned on, and this brings up all this stuff of just things that she's dealing with in her heart. And I think my job
mm,
as a pastor has really helped me just kind of learn how to like even pastor my kids, because I think
mm.
there is overlapping with fatherhood, being a father and being a pastor, but I don't think they're always exactly the same thing. And so I think just my experience of just trying to be there for somebody and not solve their problems, but really listen and comfort them, is has really helped my kids a lot. They've done counseling here and there as well, so that's kind of helped is also.
Yeah.
um and it's going through
It's
divorces.
beautiful.
Going through divorce is absolutely terrible. Like,
Mm,
I can't speak for everybody, because I know there's different contexts and people have different relational dynamics, but for me it was absolutely
yeah.
miserable. And it
Mm,
made it even that much more miserable to see my kids go through it.
mm,
Like, it just was the toughest thing for me, because at the end of the day, that's not what I wanted.
mm,
I don't think that's what God wanted.
mm. That's hard.
So, to see them just kind of experience this. But um, I had a good family friend who just said something so simple, but yet so important to me. This is probably, I was 6 months into going through this, and um, she said, "Hey, like, God's gonna take care of your kids."
Mm.
And it could sound cliche-ish until it's not, and it wasn't. It was just exactly what I needed to hear, and I've seen it. I don't know how much feedback I've gotten from people that are in my life, friends, families, even acquaintances of that know what I've gone through, to say, "Hey, man, your kids are doing really, really good." And
Mm.
I'm a great dad, but there's something more there. Like, it
Yeah.
is the Lord.
It's good.
So
Sounds like you're doing some good stuff alongside of him though. That's a really profound insight of just not having to fix it all and being a good listener
yeah.
and wrapping around him. I love it. What would you want somebody to know that maybe they're going through a divorce, maybe they're in the church, maybe they're feeling the stigma of all that and like feeling a little whatever, like the
Hmm.
scarlet letter, or they're marked, they're blackballed. As a pastor, I'd love to hear your thoughts speaking back to people that are going through this, and then also just the encouragement of like how would you strengthen them? Because it sounds like it hasn't been easy for you, but you're coming
Hmm.
through. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've gained something.
Yeah. I mean, I think you feel very alone and very isolated.
Uh,
You may or may not have seen this coming. So there's different levels of like shock that you go through. I think you pretty quickly start going. Typically, I think you start going through like the grief cycle pretty quickly, of like bargaining, of anger, of sadness, all these
hmm,
different feelings. And I think the one thing I that wasn't helpful was just like those like like very well-meaning people trying to like just say things like, "Oh, I can't imagine how tough it is," or these like little quick statements where it just made you more frustrated. That for me,
yeah,
and I think that's one thing that I think has probably helped me help my kids, is being on the receiving end of going through something tough, and then people not knowing what to say, so they just try to say something anyways. And I think what you really need is people just to be present. And
yeah,
my divorce was it was tough for me to go through, but I think from like a legal standpoint, it was like pretty straightforward and easy in that sense. So there's a whole nother side that maybe I haven't even experienced of how ugly they can get at times, and those kind of things, and
Okay.
kids in custody and
Okay.
those kind of things that
Yeah.
I didn't really experience. And so, and not going through it
Yeah.
before, and then not having anyone around me that's gone through it before, like I had no idea
Yeah.
what I was getting into. So then there was all these other like just practical legal issues that would just scare me because I didn't know,
Wow.
luckily I had a friend who prior to becoming a Christian had gone through one and really kind of helped me navigate just what to do on a practical level, which I don't know. I think sometimes we don't have those kind of answers in the church because we don't maybe haven't gone through it or don't know. So I think getting people like good help just to know how to make good decisions is like something that people need. And I think being people need to know those kind of things to kind of help them navigate these situations.
Yeah.
I one of my really good friends is he's a great guy. He's a pastor. um when I was going through it, man, I was bleeding everywhere, like metaphorically speaking. Like I just was, the pain was just everywhere. I feel like I was bleeding out like it was a Tarantino movie or something, like just everywhere. It was just a mess. And one of my pastor friends came up to me and said, "Hey man, you know what? Like I think I think you need to find like a counselor, and you need to talk to that you could talk to about this subject of divorce that you're going through 1 hour a
Mm.
week. I think you need to find a good friend, someone you can trust, or a brother or somebody, and talk to them 1 hour a week. And then I think you need to sit down with the Lord and just let it all out 1 hour a week." And he goes, and then live your life. And at the
Wow.
time, it didn't really hit because I was just so focused on like my life was ending, my world was ending, I'm gonna lose my kids, like this is not what I want, my marriage is failing, that I couldn't see that. But I got a little bit down the road and I realized how important that was, because when you're really going through it, like it's hard not to, but if you can like do those kind of things, and also just take step forwards to like move towards the Lord and other people, and not just get so inundated in it, is really helpful for you, for me. Because I mean, I think I was like crying probably 12 hours a day for like the first 6 7 months. And then I think I could have made things a lot better for myself in hindsight if I would have really like just found a counselor, leaned on a friend, sat with
Yeah.
the Lord, and then and I think that would have been good advice. I think another thing I had to learn how to do was to I had to detach people's decisions from the character of God,
Oh, wow.
because I really because you really start to blame God. Like, and I remember, like, I don't care how sovereignty works. Like, I want it to work right now in my favor, honestly. Like, I want it, I want things to like go back. I want things to be fixed, um, and then that doesn't happen, and then so you start to blame God for other people's decisions that they're making, and then you get mad at him and you pull away from God. And that's probably the last place you need to be. Even, and I know the word, he never leaves us nor forsakes us, but sometimes we can't see that because of just the anger and hurt that we have in our heart. So that was one of those things where I had to kind of like, okay, this isn't God. He's not making this happen. This is not his heart. Like, this is not what he wants. But he's going to let people make the decisions that they
Mm.
make. So that was one of the things that I had to like really come to terms with.
It's good. What did you do that and ultimately worked? Like anything, like you just shared a nugget right there. I don't know if the counseling thing ended up manifesting and maybe the exchange of life there. Yeah, anything in the process, you're like, man, this was a real handhold for me. Like it really helped in the
Yeah,
process of grieving or just moving through it.
definitely counseling helped. I did it for a year and a half.
Mhm.
Took a little break recently, but I thought it was really needed. And one thing my older brother said
In
something
what
one.
way? Like what?
Oh,
How was it helpful? Just to have someone to talk to, or were they giving you nuggets? Or
I think just processing just the pain, of just what had happened. And I think I can't remember who said it, but they said that everybody that is going through pain or in grief, they need someone to witness it.
oh wow,
And I think that's when I make that reference of like bleeding out and like just being. I think that I wanted people to know. like what was
Yeah.
happening to me, like this pain that I was going through. And I think it helped me focus on like not having to do that as frequently, and to have more of a focused like
Yeah.
person that you could talk to. And so I think that really just kind of helped me, and I think different people respond to hard times differently. Like I internalize everything. So I can find I'm at fault all the time in every situation. And that just kind of heaps on this whole another level of pressure on yourself. And that,
Yeah.
you're trying to look back and try to see how you could fix things or change things or do things different. And it doesn't change the fact that you're in the present, and it doesn't change the fact that there's going to be a tomorrow. And
Mm.
I think having to like, okay, I got to be present for my kids right now. Like I don't have the luxury of sitting back and like rehearsing everything that has ever happened and trying to figure out what could have been different. And so I think counseling kind of really helped me just to take a lot of that off and to kind of really be present in my current situation and then to figure out how to move forward. So
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
I interrupted you. You were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
a brother
So
or,
yeah, I was just going through it. It was because you kind of obviously all the weeks seem tough, but then there's certain moments that just feel like there's an extra weight on them. And I called my older brother one day, and we were talking, and he said something to me. He said, if you don't give up, the devil loses, right? And it was just one of those statements that I so needed in that moment, because I felt like giving up. Like I felt like I had lost. I felt like I had failed. And just this reminder, and I thought about it like this, because I really started to try to process what he said to me. And I used to think that that victory was my foot on Satan's throat.
okay.
But I think some seasons in life, it's Satan's foot on your throat with the refusal of you to, with you refusing to give up. That
That's
still is
awesome.
victory as well.
Yeah.
And I think I had to just because I don't think I'm one of those guys that over spiritualizes, but I needed that visual of like, I'm not gonna let this like take my life out, my future out, my
Wow.
my kids out. I've this obviously has happened and it's tragic and it's terrible, but it's not. I'm going to keep moving forward, and I'm going to keep like getting up and being present and being honest, with myself and with my kids. And I think that's was one of those turning moments for me, was just kind of having that little moment of like, all right, I got to keep pushing through, all this tough
What
stuff.
does that honesty look like on it for me as a father? I think it's hard to be honest when I'm not with it. Like I don't know what to
Hmm.
do. I don't know how to be a good dad. And so you're like navigating real pain with your kids, with your own heart. How did being honest and being present for them look like? Like, I mean, I've heard you already say it's like, hey, you don't have to have all the answers.
Hmm.
Um, is there anything else you would add? Because I feel like as parents, maybe especially dads, it's like we gotta have a plan. We gotta like,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. One thing. This is probably 4 months ago. I was driving to the gym after I take my kids to school. And you ever just feel like the Lord like gives you prayers to pray that He wants to answer? Like it's not something that you were even thinking about. It just kind of like just pops into your spirit, and all of a sudden you're aware of this thing like you want to ask the Lord. Like I don't know if I've had too many of those moments, but I had this moment where I just was driving and I felt to ask the Lord that He would help me to be exactly what each one of my kids needed in this season. because
Wow.
I because just as much as they need love, they need encouragement. I feel like each one of them need different things,
Yep.
um, and it was weird because all of a sudden, like I feel like I started noticing things about my kids, and it was like almost like opportunities for me to step in and be that for them.
Yeah.
I think there was one day, there was like a 3-day stretch where me and my youngest daughter played the game Sorry like 35 times or something. And she just kept asking, and I kept saying yes, and we kept playing. And I noticed that my son, like all of a sudden, like I really started noticing, like, hey, he really is a physical touch kind of guy. So
Yeah.
making sure that I'm grabbing his arm or putting him in like a nice little headlock or rubbing his shoulders, like and it's not that I wasn't aware of it before, but it's almost like it became aware on a greater level. And I
Ooh.
think I think that helped me to be present for them. And then if I'm obviously my kids can't be my counselor. And I've heard of so many situations from other people that, when they go through tough stuff, that, they're, or even like counseling some of my students of just how they interacted with their parents when something tough would happen. So I knew my kids could be my counselor or my confidant, but I knew that if I was having a tough day, like I needed to figure out a way that was appropriate for them to hear that I was going through a tough day,
Yeah.
or that if they were feeling sad, like, you know what, when you feel sad, I feel sad, and I don't want that to keep you from being sad, but just showing the emotions of just what they're going through. So
Yeah.
I think those are some of the things that, I'm just honest with them, that I feel like
Yeah.
I really try to be honest only when I feel like it's helpful to
Yeah.
them, not to me,
Sure.
because, and I think that's kind of helped me a lot. So
Yeah, man, such gold there. I mean, those are stellar nuggets. I love that prayer. Like, help me be the father that each of them need me to be. And then
yeah.
your eyes are open, you start noticing things, and he's helping you in the process. And
Hmm.
man,
Yeah, because we talk about the Holy Spirit and how he moves, and we talk about revival, and I love all of that. But if I'm not seeing that kind of stuff happen in my personal life, in my family, like I don't know, like that's where I want it to start. That's where I want it to manifest. That's what I want it to look like, is me being in tune with the Spirit, not when I'm on a stage or when I'm speaking in front of people, but when I'm like trying to parent my kids. Like that's where I want it the most. So
yeah, come on. I love it. Well, man, this has just been good stuff. Really good stuff. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about you wanted to speak to? I don't know if there's anything as
mm,
we're getting close to landing here. Maybe there's something in your mind that you just want to get out.
I'm trying to think.
I just appreciate your wisdom
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in this subject. There's like so much wisdom coming out of you and such real gold. It does really reflect to me like when we're going through things, there's a gold to be mined, huh? Like
Oh,
there
total.
there's like a grace on people's lives that have actually gone through hardship.
Hmm.
And back to the whole stigma dynamic and like, wow, somebody's marriage blew apart and like now all of a sudden maybe some people are like less than. I'm like, no, dude, there's no such thing.
Oh
It's like
yeah,
we're all people having the human experience and we all have an opportunity to learn from each other.
yeah.
And yeah, really
I can't
appreciate you
remember.
being open with your journey, bro.
Absolutely. I can't remember who said it, but it might have been Eugene Peterson. But he says, "We all break when we hit the ground. Like it's just universal. Like when something happens, like we're fragile creatures, And I think just going through this has really allowed me to have even more empathy than I ever had. Like I counsel people all the time, but just going through this is really like even opened my eyes to even like not giving like a quick word, or not even trying to just to be present with people
Yeah.
as they're going through stuff, is I think is so it's so invaluable. So I think if you have people in your life that you don't know what to say, perfect, don't say anything, just be present, like check in on them, see how they're doing, just listen. I think is some things that are just so, we know it, but we don't sometimes practice it, because I think all of us have that desire to like want to fix things,
Mm,
and sometimes there's things that just can't be fixed unless it's the Lord. And so
yeah.
you have to just learn to just be there in the process and in the mess with people. And I think that's what God wants. The word became flesh and dwelt among us. Like God, he closed the distance, and showed us what love looked like, and being available and present looked like. And so I think those are things that are just really important. And I think last thing I'd probably say is this: really understand your needs if you're going through it. Like
Mm,
take the time to figure out like what you need, and don't be afraid. And if you don't have, and if maybe you have needs and no one can meet those things, that becomes your prayer list of like, God, send people, send families, open up situations so that in this season that I don't feel alone, I don't feel isolated, I don't feel written off or forgotten about. Because I think that I had some tough times where I think well-meaning people didn't know what to do, so they did nothing. And then, but on our end, we
mm,
feel that because we're because it feels like, like, hey, I'm going through it, and there's no one there. And so I think that's just really important to communicate. Like, hey, I need a friend right now. I need to talk to somebody right now. I need to go on a walk right now. Like, and just let people meet those needs for you.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Such good stuff. Um, yeah, I really appreciate time with you, bro.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is gold. Where would people find you if they want to connect with you more? I don't know if you're on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, Instagram. I think I was the first Jeremy Gonzales, so there's no hyphens or or anything.
Oh,
It's just Jeremy Gonzales.
nice.
I do. Yeah, I think that'll probably be the best way.
Perfect. And we can't, I mean, we can't finish this without talking about that jersey hanging behind you. Is that a signed Jerry Rice jersey? What is that?
Yeah, so I think my first year as a revival group pastor, I was on stage at BSSM, just community speaking for a few minutes, and
Yeah.
my revival group pastor told me that in order to really grow in God, you need to become a great receiver. And I
Okay.
think in ministry, we think like, I gotta give, but no, God first gives to us, and then from overflow we give to others.
Yeah.
And so I was just communicating what I had learned in first year, and I said, if that's what it looks like to be successful in the kingdom, then I want to be the greatest receiver, spiritually speaking, in the kingdom. Like, I
Yeah.
want to be the Jerry Rice of this environment. Like, I want to receive, I want to catch everything God throws my way. And I said that, and that was it. Like, I just use
Yeah.
this analogy. Like, I think he's the greatest. And one day I walk into my office and there's a box, and it's wrapped, and I unwrap it. And to this day, I don't even know who gave it to me, but one of the students listening gave me this autographed signed Jerry Rice jersey. Yeah. So
No way. That's
yeah,
so epic. I
yeah.
love it.
So, and
And I
I'm a
love what
huge
that
I'm a huge
means. Like,
49er. I'm a huge 49er fan, so it works too. So
yeah, but I also love that deeper meaning.
oh,
I love that,
absolutely.
man.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really
yeah.
glad I
So
asked you about that.
yep.
That's a good word for all of us.
Jerry Rice. That's right. Be great receivers. So
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks for jumping in with us. We're going after family wholeness, family dynamics, tons of nuggets Jeremy just tossed out. Hoping that this is empowering for you guys during your journey.
yes,
And we're going to officially end it there. I'm going to say goodbye. Jeremy, thanks for your time. Man, you're
absolutely.
amazing. Love you, brother.
Yes, yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.